When the last tents were cleared out of the area known as Massancas last week, the city placed more than 100 people into short-term housing units. But there are plenty more people across the city who haven't gotten that kind of help for a variety of reasons. And when it comes to women experiencing homelessness, they're at a far higher risk than men. An issue my next guest is looking to address. Jennifer Hanlon Wigon is the executive director of the Boston Day Shelter Women's Lunch Place. She joins me now. Jennifer, welcome. Talk to me a little bit about what particular types of risks women are at when they're experiencing homelessness when compared to men or their peers.
Sure. Well, Sue, thank you for having me and putting the spotlight on the particular needs of women who are homeless. And we know that violence and trauma actually is a main pathway into homelessness for women. And unfortunately, in a situation of being homeless, they're even at higher risk for physical and sexual assault. So they have unique needs to men in terms of their physical health, their gynecological health, feminine hygiene, and all of these things are, more difficult to take care of, and it's more difficult just to access care and products to take care of yourself when you're homeless.
I read your piece that you had posted at your website, and I was shocked at how I had not always really looked at the tents that were at Massancas and the Newmarket area in the same way that you were looking at them and seeing them in a different way. Can you talk a little bit about what you wrote when you see these tents and these shelters that were at Massancas, what they represent to you and what you see happening?
Right. I mean, first of all, they represent a small amount of the homeless women in Boston, because women are homeless in that type of situation throughout the city. And women look for safety for themselves. And so that means hiding. And so we are concerned that women don't reach out to the outreach vans. They don't want to be seen by them. They don't want to be counted in the homeless count. And so we know that these women are doing the best they feel for themselves to be safe, but that these are clearly unsafe environments for women. And we also see when we look at those tents, we know that women are being sexually trafficked in those tents and they're being assaulted. And these are difficult, I think, it's difficult for people to understand that in some ways that is their community, but it's not a safe community. And that's why places like Women's Lunch Place are so important, because they are gender specific and they're safe. They're safe for women to come in and start to work on services that could help them be on a better pathway, whether that's connecting to mental health support or recovery support. But when you're in a place like Women's Lunch Place, where you're getting really good nutrition on a regular basis, you start to heal your physical body. You can start to hopefully in a relationship that sometimes takes years to establish, you can start to work on those sort of advocacy issues.
You know, Jennifer, I'm at Massancas a lot and been covering the issues there in particular for a long time, and I'm always struck by how suddenly we pay attention to something and then suddenly we want a quick fix. And of course, the tents came to sort of represent fixing it, when we all know that there were plenty of people who were not living in tents or were using the tents and are still experiencing homelessness and still in the city and the surrounding communities, if not the entire state. I'm just want you to expand a little bit on building those relationships with the clients that you have, and the particular challenges that women have, I think. I mean, obviously, lots of trauma causes people to be experiencing homelessness, but women sometimes bring the additional trauma of domestic abuse or fleeing a situation where they've had no power or were in danger. Can you talk about how you bridge that, how you get to people to get them the help when they're experiencing that type of trauma?
Yeah, sure. I mean, intimate partner violence and domestic violence, those are key drivers of homelessness for women. And generally leads to homelessness because they've lost the financial support of a partner. They often have children that they're caring for, and they many times have not had access to the social determinants of health. So they haven't had the educational support that can get them employment at a living wage. So I think that what's important at Women's Lunch Place is that we have a very low threshold. There's no intake process. And we just welcome people into a community that is positive and supportive, and we let folks know what source services we have, but we never force a service on somebody. And our staff works really well to establish relationships with the guests so that they can eventually hear their story. And so often, a guest might come in to get an ID, and when an advocate starts working with her, she realizes she doesn't have her ID because she fled a domestic violence situation and left everything behind. So then the real focus becomes, housing and stability around that for that guest. But I know that oftentimes people on the front line of this work, they're not the highest paid people in the city, and the work they do is just so critical and vital. And they often bring their own lived experience with many of the issues that our guests face, whether that's substance use or homelessness or just economic disparity to the work, and they really just put their heart into it. I can't say enough about the staff of Women's Lunch Place, but we train. It's really important that they are really well experienced in trauma-informed care, motivational interviewing, crisis prevention and intervention. We want them to be the best in class staff so that they can give the best services to women, but they know and accept that it can take sometimes years and many years to get somebody to just move that needle a little bit.
Right.
But moving that needle can mean such a big difference to a guest who, maybe suffers from, major mental illness, and just getting that relationship, maybe getting them started with some mental health care. Their quality of life can be so improved.
Two things happened this year so far. One, Mayor Michelle Wu, had released a guidance to media on how to cover the folks that were living at Mass and Cass during the removal of the tent. Some in the media, myself included, were like, well, you shouldn't tell us what to do, but at the same time treating human beings like human beings with the respect that they deserve during that period. And the other time that caught my attention was a protest, an anti-vaccine mandate protest that followed Mayor Wu to the Women's Pine Street Inn facility. And I was struck by how, on one hand, we're paying attention to the humanity and protecting the folks who are experiencing this trauma. And on the other hand, you've got especially women who have their own particular traumas being protested for something that really didn't have anything to do with them outside of a space for them that should be safe. Have you seen us as a society doing a better job putting the humanity of folks experiencing addiction and experiencing homelessness? Have we worked better at centering that as we talk about ways that we can help and ways that we have to keep the whole community safe?
Well, I think we talk about it more. I think it's more public. I think most folks can reflect on their own family and know that somewhere a sister, a brother, an aunt, an uncle has been facing some of the same challenges that our homeless guests are. And many people will say to me, Jennifer, I look at, I come in to volunteer, or I look at your website and I look at those women and I think, why isn't that me? And most people think it's just luck. I had something bad happen, but somebody else stepped in, or I had a good education when my husband left me. So, I think that there's people can relate to these issues. They're not singular to the homeless community. Substance use is throughout every facet of our society. Mental illness is every facet of our society. So I think the fact that we're talking about the issues, really, that the complex issues that are the basis of homelessness, I think people can understand that. They can understand, for women, trauma in childhood, physical and emotional abuse is a large percentage of women who are homeless have experienced that. And I think when you see the woman in front of you who's homeless, I often see the child that that woman was. And, you know, when a woman's really being very vocal or agitated, our staff is just trained to sort of see beyond that activity into the essential problem behind it.
So Jennifer, the temperatures have driven many people from Obvious View who are experiencing homelessness, and certainly the tents have been, I haven't checked today, but I think most of the tents, if not all of them, are gone from the Mass and Cass area. But the challenge of homelessness continues. What can folks do for the Women's Lunch Place and for other facilities and organizations? What do you need?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to homelessness is affordable housing. So we all have to get behind Mayor Wu's efforts to provide more affordable housing and different varieties of that. You know, a single room occupancy can be a really good option for a homeless woman. And, you know, for some with children, you know, there's different options that need to be out there. But I also would like to, you know, explore further, you know, gender specific housing for women, you know, a safe place where they can work on their unique needs. That would be you know, a really wonderful thing for women. And we don't, you know, because of fair housing rules and stuff, there are ways to address it. But I think that's something that's going to be really important for the population of women that we serve.
Jennifer Hanlon Wigon, thanks for joining us.